Marcus Chen disappeared for 3 days without moving an inch. On a Tuesday morning in October 2019, Marcus pulled into a downtown parking garage in Portland. He needed to grab lunch before his afternoon shift. He fed a meter on level 3, paid for 2 hours. The security camera timestamp reads 12:47 p.m. that day. His car was found exactly where he parked it at 3:15 p.m. that same day. The doors were locked. The engine was off. Inside, Marcus sat motionless in the driver's seat, hands on the wheel, staring straight ahead. When police opened the door, he didn't respond. His body temperature was normal. His pulse was steady, but he wouldn't blink, wouldn't speak, wouldn't move. They rushed him to Providence Medical Center, and that's when things got strange. The hospital's neurological team found nothing wrong. No stroke, no aneurysm, no evidence of a seizure. His brain activity was normal. His reflexes worked. But Marcus remained completely unresponsive, trapped inside his own body like a prisoner behind glass. For 72 hours, his family sat beside him, begging him to wake up. His mother held his hand. His wife whispered in his ear. Nothing worked. Then on Friday morning, exactly 3 days after he parked that car, Marcus gasped. His eyes focused. Color returned to his face. He looked around the hospital room as if he'd never seen it before. When the doctors asked what happened, Marcus described something that made no medical sense. He said he'd been conscious the entire time, aware of everything happening around him. But his perception of time was completely shattered. In his mind, only seconds had passed. He remembered sitting in his car, thinking about what sandwich he wanted. Then the next moment, he was in the hospital bed, his body screaming from the exhaustion of 3 days of paralysis. The parking meter became significant because of what the garage owner discovered when he reviewed the footage. Between 12:47 p.m. and 3:15 p.m., the camera showed Marcus's car never moving. But the timestamp itself was corrupted. It jumped. 12:47 became 1:03, then 1:15, then back to 1:08. It skipped forward and backward randomly throughout those hours. The garage owner had never seen anything like it. The other cameras on different levels recorded normally. Only the camera pointing at Marcus's space malfunctioned. The meter itself told another story. Marcus paid for 2 hours. When attendants checked it later, the display showed he'd overstayed by 40 minutes. But the meter's internal records contradicted this. According to its log, exactly 2 hours had elapsed. The mechanical counter and the display disagreed with each other. Marcus tried to return to normal life, but something had fractured inside him. He couldn't reconcile the few seconds he experienced with the 72 hours his body endured. His wife said he'd sometimes freeze mid-sentence, confused about whether minutes or hours had passed. He'd ask what day it was multiple times in an hour. 6 months later, Marcus got a ticket in the mail from the parking garage. The citation was dated for that Tuesday. Overtime fees, $37. The date on the ticket was wrong, though. It was dated for 3 days in the future from when it was issued. I tried to contact Marcus through social media. His accounts are still active, but he hasn't posted anything in years. His wife's LinkedIn says she's a widow now. Marcus died in 2021. The cause listed was sudden cardiac arrest. He was 43 years old. I found one more detail that keeps me awake at night. A woman named Jennifer Torres posted in a Portland community forum in 2020. She described being in that same parking garage on the same day. She remembers seeing a man sitting in a silver Honda, perfectly still. She thought it was odd, so she remembered it. She also mentioned something else. She said the meter he was parked at seemed to be glitching. The numbers on the display weren't counting down properly. They were counting down, then up, then sideways. She remembered thinking the meter was broken. But there was another detail she included. She said there was a second person in the car with him. A woman in the passenger seat. Just sitting there, staring straight ahead, exactly like the man. The garage had no record of Marcus being with anyone that day.
Days later. Ms. Martinez, this is Dr. Patel. We need to see you immediately. There's something unusual in your results. Sarah's stomach dropped. Cancer. Duh. It had to be cancer. But when she arrived at the clinic, Dr. Patel's expression was something worse than concern. It was confusion. Fear, even. Your white blood cell count is 0, he said, sliding the lab report across his desk. Completely absent. Your hemoglobin levels are non-existent. According to this blood work, you shouldn't be alive. Sarah felt the room tilt. That's impossible. I feel fine. I know. That's why I had the lab run it again. He pulled out a second report. Same results. Identical down to the decimal point. A third test. A fourth. All impossible. Over the next week, Sarah underwent every scan known to medicine. CT scans, MRIs, X-rays to go. The images showed a normal skeleton, normal organs, everything where it should be. But the blood work never changed. She was a woman with no blood running through her veins. She began researching in forums at 3 a.m., scrolling through medical impossibilities and freak cases. That's when she found the thread. It was from 2019. A man named David Chen describing the exact same thing. 0 white blood cells. No hemoglobin. Completely normal vitals otherwise. The post had one comment from a user named The Watcher 447. Stop going to doctors. They'll quarantine you soon. Leave the city. You have 72 hours. Sarah's hands shook as she read more. There were others. A woman in Portland. A teenager in Phoenix, all reporting the same impossible blood work. All had left their cities within days. The last post was from someone in New Orleans, dated 2 months ago. I didn't leave. They came to the house at midnight. No uniforms, no identification. They took blood samples and my medical records. Then they left without saying anything. I can still see the cameras outside my window. I'm not supposed to talk about this, but... The post ended there. Deleted. Sarah packed a bag that night. She called in sick to the hospital. A lie that felt prophetic. She drove north without a destination, just away. Away from her apartment, her job, her life. 3 days later, she stopped at a gas station in Virginia and saw them. 2 unmarked black SUVs in the parking lot. Men in dark clothes looking at her car's license plate. She'd been driving for 12 hours straight, paranoid about every car behind her. She kept driving. For 6 months, Sarah lived in motels and used cash. She avoided hospitals, avoided blood tests, avoided leaving any trace. She watched the news obsessively for clues about what was happening to her. But there was nothing. No outbreak. No official warnings. Just silence. Then one morning, something changed. She woke up and felt cold in a way she'd never felt before. Not the cold of winter, but something deeper. She looked at her hands in the bathroom mirror and screamed. They were translucent. Barely there, like she was becoming invisible. Sarah called the only person she'd left a message with, her sister Maria. She whispered everything into the phone, her voice cracking. The blood work was the mark, Sarah said. They were identifying us, finding us. And now I think whatever happened to my blood is finishing. I'm disappearing. Sarah, you need to go to the police. The police won't help. They're part of it. Maria, I'm sorry. I just wanted you to know what happened to me, in case the line went dead. Maria called back immediately. No answer. She tried for days. Nothing. When she finally reported her sister missing, the police found Sarah's motel room empty. The bed was made. Her clothes were still in the closet. Her car was in the parking lot. But Sarah was gone. The only evidence she'd ever existed was a folder on her laptop marked proof. Inside were the blood test results, The forum posts, the timestamps and dates. When Maria showed them to the detective, he went pale. "We need to take these," he said. That was the last time Maria saw those files. 2 weeks later, Maria woke to find men in her apartment. They didn't speak. They took her blood. They took her laptop. They left a pamphlet on her nightstand that simply read, "Your blood work is normal. You have nothing to worry about. Forget this ever happened." But she hadn't forgotten. And neither has anyone else who's seen their sister vanish into whatever comes after you stop belonging to the living world. March 14th, 2019, Sarah Chen walked into a laundromat on Ash Street in Portland and never came back out. Her boyfriend waited outside for 20 minutes before going in to find her. The laundromat was empty. All 3 of her loads, unfolded, still damp, sat in machines 7, 8, and 9. What he found when he checked the security footage would haunt him for the rest of his life. The tapes showed Sarah entering at 11:47 p.m. She loaded her clothes, sat on the plastic bench near the window, and waited. Nothing unusual. Normal speed. Normal time. Then at 12:03 a.m., she stood up, walked toward machine number 7, and the image didn't distort. There was no glitch, no blur. She simply walked behind a large yellow drying unit in the corner, and when she emerged from the other side, it was someone else entirely. Same clothes, same build, different person. The gait was wrong. The posture, the way she moved was mechanical, rehearsed. The substitute Sarah walked to the door, pushed it open, and left. When investigators reviewed the laundromat's records, they found something worse. Sarah's name had been on a list. A long list. Taped to the manager's clipboard in the back office. 43 names. All checked off with dates. All customers who'd walked into that laundromat alone. The manager, a man named Frank Delroy, who'd run the place for 16 years, was arrested the next day. But he wouldn't explain the list. Wouldn't say where Sarah went. Wouldn't tell them what happened behind machine number 7. At trial, he simply smiled and said, "Frank is still in prison. He's never spoken another word since his conviction." But here's what keeps investigators up at night. New customers keep reporting the same thing. A drying unit that's slightly too large. A space behind it that shouldn't exist. And when they ask the current manager about the list, because there's always a new manager, she gets quiet and says she doesn't know what they're talking about. The laundromat on Ash Street still operates today. The drying unit in the corner was never removed.
In 1987, Riverside Municipal Pool closed forever after 17 children vanished during a single afternoon. The water was never investigated. My grandfather told me this story the night before he died. He was there that day. He said the pool opened at noon on June 14th, a Saturday. About 40 kids were swimming, splashing, diving, racing across the deep end. The water was cold that year. He remembered thinking how unusually cold it was. By 2 p.m., the lifeguards noticed something odd. The water level wasn't dropping like it normally did. Instead, it was rising. Not by much. Just an inch every few minutes. One guard mentioned it to another. They both shrugged it off. At 2:47 p.m., a boy named Marcus dove off the high platform. He was showing off for his friends. My grandfather watched him arc through the air, watched him slice into the water. But Marcus never came up. They found him 10 minutes later at the bottom of the deep end. He wasn't drowning. His eyes were open. His lungs were full of water, but his face was completely calm. Peaceful, almost. Like he'd chosen to stay down there. The guards pulled him out. Started CPR, but something was wrong. The water that came from his mouth, it wasn't pool water. It was cold. Impossibly cold. Like water pulled from somewhere much deeper than a public swimming pool should go. They evacuated the pool. Called an ambulance. Marcus was dead. But here's the part my grandfather couldn't explain. While the paramedics were working on Marcus, nobody noticed at first. But then people started asking, where was Tommy? Where was Sarah? Where was David? One by one, parents realized their children weren't in the evacuation. They weren't in the locker rooms. They weren't anywhere. 16 more children. Gone. Not drowned. Not missing. Just absent. Like they'd been erased. My grandfather said the police drained the pool that night. All 600,000 gallons. The bottom was smooth concrete. No bodies. No tunnels. No explanation. But they found something in the pump system. A door. He called it a door, though he couldn't quite describe it. He said it was made of the same material as the pool concrete, but it didn't belong there. It was sealed, welded shut from the outside. The city never reported it publicly. The pool was demolished 6 months later. The land was left empty for decades. A park stands there now. My grandfather died that night, right after finishing the story. The autopsy report said heart failure, but my grandmother told me his lungs were full of water. They never explained how a man sleeping in his bed in Arizona could have salt water in his lungs. 3 weeks later, I drove out to that park. I sat on the grass where the deep end used to be. And for just a moment, I swear this is true, the ground felt cold beneath me. Impossibly cold. Like something beneath the surface was still breathing down there. Still waiting. They say if you go to that park on humid days, you can smell chlorine. Even though there hasn't been water there in 37 years. I haven't been back since.
The car had been at coordinates in the middle of Lake Champlain, coordinates that put it roughly 3 miles out into the water, and the timestamp showed the car had been there for approximately 7 hours. The lake was dragged. They found nothing. But here's what nobody talks about. 2 weeks later, a woman reported that she'd seen a man matching David Chen's description walking along a rural access road near the Canadian border, about 80 miles from where the car was found. She said he looked confused, like he didn't know where he was. When she tried to approach him, he simply turned and walked into the woods. By the time police arrived, he was gone. They found his shoe 300 yards into the forest. Inside was a note written in what appeared to be David's handwriting. It read, "The car knows the way. Don't let it show you." The shoe was never entered into evidence. Last month, another rental car, a different agency, different state, was found on the side of Route 80 in Nebraska. Silver Nissan Altima dirt. Engine running. Door open. The odometer had recorded a 300-mile drive in exactly 4 hours. No body was ever found. But the rental agreement? It was signed by someone named David Chen. Dr. Marcus Webb's animal clinic on Pinewood Avenue had a perfect track record. Every pet brought in for surgery left healthier than before. Except they never left at all. It started with small animals. Mrs. Chen brought her beagle in for a routine knee surgery in March 2019. The procedure took 3 hours. When it finished, Dr. Webb called her into the recovery room with her dog freshly bandaged, walking normally. She paid, scheduled a follow-up, and went home. But something was wrong. The dog's movements were too smooth. Its eyes didn't track her hand. When she called its name, it didn't respond. Not to anything. It ate when food appeared in front of it. It breathed. Its heart beat. But the animal she'd brought in 3 hours earlier had been replaced by something that looked identical and moved like a dog, but wasn't. She called the clinic. Dr. Webb said this sometimes happened with anesthesia. The confusion would pass. It never did. By July, the pattern had accelerated. A cat came out of dental cleaning and spent 3 days staring at its owner's hand as if seeing it for the first time. A golden retriever returned from a hip replacement and walked in perfect circles for 2 weeks before stopping entirely, standing motionless in the backyard until it collapsed. But the owners couldn't prove anything was wrong. The animals were healthy. The vital signs were perfect. They just weren't themselves anymore. Then a teenage girl named Sarah decided to wait for her rabbit during surgery. She hid in the bathroom down from the operating room. What she saw through the cracked door changed everything. Dr. Webb didn't operate on animals. Not exactly. The operating table held her rabbit, yes. But surrounding it were these devices, machines made of copper tubing and crystalline structures that hummed at a frequency that made her teeth ache. And Dr. Webb wasn't alone. There were 3 others in the room, but they weren't moving like normal people. Their joints bent at wrong angles. Their skin had a faint luminescence. The rabbit began to glow. Sarah ran, ducked. She called the police from her car, but when officers arrived at the clinic, they found nothing. Dr. Webb was in his office doing paperwork. The operating room was empty, just standard surgical equipment. No machines, no crystalline structures. The 3 assistants confirmed they'd been in the room the entire time, performing a routine spay. Sarah tried to find other families who'd experienced the same thing. She found 7. All of them described the same phenomenon. Pets that returned wrong, still breathing, still moving, but fundamentally altered in some way that nobody could quite articulate to authorities. Then the disappearances started. Mrs. Hernandez brought her German Shepherd in for a tumor removal. She never picked him up. Clinic said he died on the table, complications from anesthesia. They apologized, offered a refund. But when she demanded to see the body, they refused. Said it had already been cremated per their standard protocol. 3 more pets died that week, all cremated immediately. All owners refused service before they could insist on seeing remains. But on the last one, a Persian cat named Duchess, the owner showed up unannounced 2 hours after dropping her off. He claimed he'd forgotten his phone and needed to call his wife. The clinic was empty. Not closed. Empty. Lights on, but nobody there. The cages in the back room were open. The operating equipment was gone. In its place was a faint residue on the floor, like burned sugar and copper. Dr. Marcus Webb was never found. Neither were the 3 assistants. The veterinary clinic was leased to a shell corporation that dissolved the same day. The building sat vacant for 6 months before being demolished to make room for a parking lot. Sarah compiled everything she found into a blog post. Within a week, 3 of the families she'd interviewed had their social media accounts deleted. One moved away without telling anyone. Another deleted all evidence of their pet ever existing. Photos, microchips, vaccination records. Erased completely. The last message Sarah received was from Mrs. Chen. It was just 1 line. They came back. They want to know what I told you. Sarah never posted again. But sometimes, late at night, people claim they can still hear animals moving in that parking lot on Pinewood Avenue. Not normal movements. Synchronized. Deliberate. And they only move when nobody's watching.